Going live in three, two. Ooh. And we are officially live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Time Talk with Eagle 3D Streaming. We have an amazing show today with none other than Luke from TensorWorks. So before we get started, just to give an introduction to Luke and then explain the format. So Luke is the lead developer of Unreal Engine pixel streaming and specializes on WebRTC. He is the director of TensorWorks, where he is helping build pixel streaming cloud solutions. So we are very lucky to have the man, the master himself, with us today for this show. And before we get started, just to explain the format briefly, this is a live show. And we have the Pixel Streaming Master with us today. So please, please, please do not hesitate to ask us questions that are on your mind related to streaming, Unreal Engine, pixel streaming, and we will try to get answers for you. And without further ado, Luke, how are you doing today?
Great to be here. I'm doing great. Thank you very much.
Cool, cool. So I know there's a lot of cool things that are happening with the release of 5.1. But before we dive into that, it'd be great just to learn a little bit more about you. Can you share just
Mhm.
some about your background and your story and how you kind of got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So my background is in computer science, and I did a PhD in data mining actually. And then while I was doing that, or just a little bit before, I guess, I was also interested in game development, and I had started a number of game companies over the years, and some of them successful, some of them not so much. And basically through those, I ended up using Unreal Engine around the time that it was in the UE4 beta when it was called Rocket. And then, so I've been using that roughly nearly 10 years, I guess, now. And then from that sort of experience doing game development and doing a bit of consulting work on the side, I ended up getting a lot of Unreal Engine experience over the years. And then when I started this company, we started collaborating with Epic Games. And then from there, we were asked to collaborate on the pixel streaming plugin. So, and that sort of led me to where I am today.
So, in what drove you to start TensorWorks? Was it just you're an entrepreneur and you wanted to have your own mark on the world, or what was the interest for starting TensorWorks?
Yeah, I think for us, it was a couple different things. We were already doing a lot of open source work for free. And then we sort of needed a vehicle, I guess, to start our consulting business more professionally. So there was sort of a direct need through that. But then there was also, as you mentioned, like, I guess a bit of entrepreneurial spirit. Like we had wanted to sort of push on the frontiers of streaming technology and real-time technology, and basically like getting sort of a group of friends together who had a similar like goal in mind, and you know, formulating a company with them was sort of, yeah, I guess the impetus for TensorWorks getting started.
Hmm.
But yeah, we right at the start, I guess it was yeah, one, playing with cool technology, two, wanting to like push on those frontiers, and then three, like wanting to offer our like professional services and products to the world, I guess.
Awesome. And how did you fall into pixel streaming? Was it because Epic had asked your team to look into it, or did you already have an interest, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a windy road. Um, but basically we had, as I mentioned, been doing some open source stuff around the time TensorWorks was starting, and we had been working on an open source version of like streaming video content from the Unreal Engine back buffer into web browser using WebRTC. Already, we had sort of made this thing that didn't work super well, but worked okay on Windows and Linux. And then because it worked on Linux, Epic was interested in having conversation with us about, they said, we've got this pixel streaming thing already. At that time, it was Windows only. So they had reached out to us to sort of be like, how hard would it be to put Linux into our pixel streaming plugin?
Are being developed. That's sometimes all it takes, you know, for a whole branch of development to occur. Speaking
Yep.
of development occurring, we just had the release of 5.1, and you guys have been busy.
Yep.
Lots of cool releases associated with Pixel Stream in it. I'll just kind of start at maybe the coolest one. Well, they're all pretty cool, but Editor.
Right.
So what's
Yeah.
the
So
deal
the
with
editor
Editor?
editor streaming, there's a little bit of backstory with this one. So we had been wanting to do this for a while, right? You can stream your Unreal Engine project to the web browser um, since the dawn of pixel streaming, but we'd always been unable to stream the editor itself. So we had been pushing on this internally for some time, and basically it was like, we're not sure whether we can allocate time to it or whatever. But we decided we'll just do a proof of concept basically and then see how that goes. So we did a proof of concept. We sort of whipped something up pretty quick, and then that like got a lot of interest. So then we were like, all right, let's pull the trigger on this and like make it a proper feature for 5.1. So we did lots of polish on top of that proof of concept to sort of get it to a point where it works fairly reliably. I mean, I will mention it's still fairly experimental, but we're pretty happy with where it's at. And we think the experience is like, going to cover most of the ways that people use the editor can be streamed now.
Yeah, so if we just start to think about potential use cases for this now, what are some ideas that come to mind now that we can stream the editor?
Yeah. Yeah, I personally think that like remote collaboration is really interesting. So people who are doing like training with each other in Unreal Engine, like instructor and student, or say, for example, remote support where you've got two developers working together and it's like, hey, let me have a look at your blueprint. Let me jump in here and change these nodes around and stuff like that. And also, collaboration through the existing multi-user editing feature as well, I think is interesting to combine with pixel streaming potentially. And you can have like a basically fully multi-user editing experience all in the web browser, which I think is, just touching on another point, which is, I guess, a transition from Unreal Engine being like a monolithic desktop application to being potentially the editor offered as a service in the cloud, right? So you go to a URL, brings up the editor, and off you go. You don't have to download 30 gigabytes or whatever.
Yeah, which would be huge because, I remember all the times I've installed Unreal and I've got to, wait a little while for that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Unreal is it's not a small application.
No, no, not by any means. And also, do you think that maybe streaming the editor, will it allow maybe more of remote teams, virtual based workflows where, you have the engine in the cloud maybe almost entirely, and your entire team is just connecting to it via the internet and
Yep.
working, or what do you think? You think that has legs, or?
Yeah, I think that's where we would like to head, like me personally, is like a studio in the cloud setup where you've got your Unreal Engine and all the other bits of software that you need all running in the cloud, and it's all like streamed to you, and you can sort of collaborate with your team members, have them jump in sessions, or like send them a link and be like, "Here's my basically entire environment. Check this out," or basically even to the extent of like working in the cloud, saving assets and having those all persisted and shared in the cloud as well. So you're transitioning a lot of this data that was centralized in your studio into a cloud data center now. So it's like much faster and like easier to persist in some ways as well.
Cool.
So yeah, I do think the idea has legs basically. I think that's like a cool direction for it to head.
And what do you think about virtual production? So say, I have a studio and I'm capturing, virtual production, and then maybe it's just running in the editor, and then maybe streaming that out as either a live show or maybe the directors in Germany and the virtual productions in Australia. Um, I guess do you see
Yep.
that as
Yeah, I
being
think
something? Yeah.
yeah, I think that's like a totally viable use case for it. Like virtual production is like one of the main sort of pillars that like me personally am very interested in pushing on, and I think like it's yeah, the scenario you mentioned is like totally a viable one.
Cool, cool. So the editor is, a very, very cool feature.
In the editor on a surface as a material. And basically, the idea with that is there's a new plugin called the Pixel Streaming Player. You enable that, and that gives you a few blueprint nodes you need to set up and connect to your signaling server into WebRTC so it knows how to receive the WebRTC stream. But then from there, you can basically get a result that comes out of that thing that you can turn into a material and then apply to a surface in Unreal Engine. And the idea here is like, yes, you can receive your pixel streams in Engine or WebRTC streams in Engine. So basically, what that allows is like embedded low latency content in your Unreal Engine applications. So video playback is interesting. Like live stream playback is interesting, I think. And then even the other one that I think is sort of a little more, I guess, out there, but also a cool use case, which is like embedding entire games or applications inside of other applications. So, for example, we may wish to one day like stream, say you wanted to stream, I don't know, um, like an Unreal Engine application like Twinmotion or MetaHuman um, into the existing Unreal Engine editor. So it's like a more cohesive ecosystem. You don't have to necessarily leave the editor.
Should be. Just a second. Stream again. And then that should. Okay. All right. So we are back live. Um, so yeah. So just to pick back up on that point, you had mentioned maybe putting the MetaHuman edit or the MetaHuman editor inside a Unreal Engine project and being able to work from it from there.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, basically embedding a whole other Unreal Engine application into the editor, would be totally possible using this new feature. So I think that's a cool way to bring the different pieces together, if you will.
Yeah. And another cool idea maybe is like you're in Call of Duty and you can see Fortnite, playing in Fortnite streaming. So you can watch that and then you can hop into it. And when you do, you actually go to the Fortnite game.
Yeah.
Uh, so, so
Yeah,
yeah,
I think we'll start to see like games embedded in games as a result of this. I
yeah,
think that's totally possible.
yeah, yeah. And I think that that's what's missing maybe a little bit is that interoperability between, everything that's being created.
Hmm.
Um, Another cool feature that I saw is the Live Link integration for iOS. Can
Hmm.
you share a little bit around that?
Yep, sure. So this one has a bit of a backstory, which I'll go through. So basically, the LiveLink application is like a iOS application that runs on an iPad, and you use that to pilot a camera in Unreal Engine. And so the virtual production team at Epic uses this and ships it to licensees who are also doing like virtual production on set for film and TV. And basically, yeah, they pilot the virtual camera using the AR kit controls of the iPad. So they move it around on set and it moves the camera around in UE. So they had this already existing for a while now, but basically the latency wasn't very good, wasn't suitable for like camera operators really to get a low latency experience out of it because it was sending essentially a set of compressed JPEGs over the network. So the team at Epic had reached out to us to basically say, let's swap out this JPEG idea for pixel streaming so we can have a low latency video stream coming out of the editor and onto the iPad, and then streaming the ARKit controls from the iPad back into the editor to pilot the virtual camera in UE. So that's how it started. And then we basically worked on that throughout 5.1. And then we were able to ship that in time for 5.1 as well. So licensees get a much lower latency virtual like VCam experience using this Live Link app now because it's using pixel streaming.
Awesome. And so, what is the user experience like then? So I'm at a studio, I'm on set. Do I have like my iPad pulled up, and then I can tap on the Live Link application, and then I can see, or what would I see?
Yeah, so basically you tap on the app, it will bring up a screen where you put in the address of your signaling server, connect to that, and then a video stream will pop up and you will see essentially the viewport of the editor or the output of the camera that you have piloted. And then from there, as soon as you start moving the iPad around, you'll start moving the actual camera in UE.
Yeah. So basically, then I have my camera, or excuse me, I have my iPad out. I've got now,
Mm-hmm.
I've connected to my signaling server, so I can now see camera output on my iPad, and then I
Yep,
can move my iPad, and it will move the virtual camera, or will there be
you
like
got it. You got it.
controls?
Yep. Yeah,
Um,
so you move it around like physically to control the camera, and then you've also got a bunch of on-screen like touch controls to change like the focal length and the lens settings of the UE camera. So it sort of acts much like a digital viewfinder or a digital display on an actual camera. So the camera operators have a fairly familiar environment.
and does this help maybe remove some of the clutter that's on set, like cables, or what could be the the benefit of this approach?
Yeah, so I think definitely the benefit is cutting down cables because it's a fully wireless experience. Also, some of the other benefits are like we get to have basically a fairly simple way to control a virtual camera in UE, like using fairly off-the-shelf hardware. So that's quite nice. Traditionally in film and TV, like it's always a thing to go and buy custom hardware, and it's nice to be able to actually just use something off the shelf for once, and have a setup that's like quite affordable for all entry levels of virtual production, not just Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, my setup for controlling a camera on set goes from whatever crazy hardware and software is needed today to, you know, pixel streaming and an iPad.
Yep, yep, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Nice. So another feature, voice over IP. Can you share a few thoughts on kind of where your head's at on that one? You know, what could be the future of voice over IP in the cloud?
Yep. Yeah, so with pixel streaming as it exists today, like we don't support voice over IP. However, it is probably one of the most requested features that we have. So we are actively working on solutions there. So basically the question comes down to like I have a microphone on my webcam or on my headset. It's like I know I can turn this on in the browser. How do we get this into UE? How do we get this into pixel streaming? So basically, once you turn it on, we use some JavaScript and we send it over to UE. And then the trick is, what do we want to do with it once it's in UE? Because we've got basically this idea in pixel streaming that the only audio that's really captured or transmitted is the game audio, the UE submix, we call it. So once you've got additional audio coming in from microphones, potentially multiple microphones, the question is, we have to mix it together somehow with the game audio, or we have separate streams. And then if we have separate streams, who gets what stream? Like, obviously you don't want to listen to yourself, but There's also no point sending muted audio to like every person. So there's some design decisions to think about basically. But the long and short of it is, yes, we are thinking about it, but it's not supported in pixel streaming today. Um, However, like for people who are really keen and want to try something, um, there is always the option of like pixel streaming is running on WebRTC under the hood, so you can try to establish just a peer-to-peer connection between the different browser peers using your microphone and just doing a normal WebRTC call between everyone in the connection, which is totally a viable solution up to a point because it won't necessarily scale very well because it's a like n squared amount of people that you have to send stuff to.
Yes, good old mesh. The challenges of a
Yeah.
mesh.
Yep.
So that's cool, and that maybe segues us into another capability that's being explored within pixel streaming, which is the SFU server. Can you maybe
Mhm.
share a little bit about what is an SFU server and how it could
Yep.
relate to pixel streaming?
Yep. So the SFU is the selective forwarding unit, is what it stands for. And basically the idea is it acts like a WebRTC peer, just like your browser would, except that it sort of sits in the middle in between Unreal Engine and the browser. So video and audio come out of Unreal Engine and into the SFU. And then instead of just going directly to the peer, basically all the peers connect, all the browsers connect to the SFU, and then the SFU will send the like the one video stream that it's getting from Unreal Engine to all of those instead of Unreal Engine having to send like 7 video streams to 7 different peers, for instance. So it has a few advantages because we can have basically an unlimited amount of peers connected to the SFU, and we don't have to worry about like our encoder running out of sessions because in pixel streaming we're fairly dependent on how many sessions our actual video card can support encoding at once.
Yes.
So we can encode once, send it to the SFU, then send it to some much larger amount of peers. Um, it's not necessarily unlimited. You will run into your network restrictions eventually. However, it is a much more scalable approach than just having everyone connected to UE.
Yeah, you just add SFUs on top of SFUs.
Yeah, that's right. You can chain them together potentially.
But that brings up a really cool question. You talked about encoders. So let's say we have a single SFU connected to a
Mhm.
single server, and it has good, spotty, bad connections
Yep.
capabilities. Are you encoding once and then doing something on the SFU side to split that stream into 3 different types, or are you encoding 3 times and sending all 3 to the SFU server?
Great question. So you can actually, it's up to you. You can actually do both. You can encode 3 times at different quality levels and send that to the SFU. That's like basically a fairly easy approach to do. In terms of like the technology, it's just existing video stream except times 3 now. The other approach is you can encode once as what they call a scalable video, SVC. And so the idea is you encode it once, but there's like a hierarchy of quality levels inside that one encoding. And then based on bit rates and network qualities, the SFU will like have a look at what peer will receive like what level of encoded video quality. So same result, you end up with like, the good quality, medium quality, low quality, but it's basically like the SFU makes a decision about how to sort of extract or unpack this encoded SVC stream. So yeah, 2 different approaches there, SVC and simulcast, which is where you encode it multiple times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let the SFU do a little bit more of the heavy lifting because I mean the streamers are already pretty burdened with rendering a game
Yeah,
engine.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
cool, cool. Um, and I mean the time goes by so fast. We're kind of running up
Yeah.
towards the end. Is there anything on your mind that you would like to maybe share or touch on?
I will mention for like we are moving to a faster release cadence for Unreal Engine releases in general, which I think should, put a smile on the face of all licensees that we're going to be pushing out more releases more often. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And the other thing to keep in mind, which is a sort of new thing for 5.1, is the pixel streaming front end and signaling server and those bits and pieces have a new home now on github.com/epicgames/pixel streaming infrastructure. And so licensees should be able to clone down from there. It's a public repository and they can grab those bits and pieces. They can open issues and pull requests as well. Obviously, your packaged game will still have like a little script in there to download all that stuff for you. But if you are wanting to get those or open issues or make pull requests, that's where those live now instead of in the Unreal Engine source code. And the reason we did that was to basically make it easier for everyone to collaborate and to ship those bits and pieces in it with a license, an MIT license, so that people can do whatever they want with them.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it was very exciting to see, and I'm sure the community loves that now that they have a little bit more flexibility in
Yep.
working with the source. Awesome. So we are wrapping up. If people have any follow-up questions or anything after the show, best way to reach you, LinkedIn or
Yep. Yep. So LinkedIn is good. Also that repo is good for pixel streaming front end questions. The Unreal Engine forums as well. I do look at those for pixel streaming questions. And of course, TensorWorks email luke@tensorworks.com.au.
Luke, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us. It was an amazing conversation. I love what you guys are doing. Uh, Thank you everyone for watching today's show. I'm Quentin Anderson, and this is Real Time Talk with Eagle 3D Streaming, and we will catch you on the next show. And Luke, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Cheers. Bye, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye.